Hello everyone, this is Stephanie. Welcome to another video. So today we're going to continue the Victoria series, and I think this will be the last piece in this series. So I've gone and made a smaller bracelet. So here's the original, for those of you who haven't seen it. I love the original. It's great. And then we made this ring, and I thought, well, for those of you who might want just a ring and a bracelet, I thought I'd make a narrow bracelet just to go with the ring. So here I have a few of the rings on, just closing it with a magnetic clasp. Very simple to make, probably great gift, you know, because they're really pretty quick. There are a couple of the other pieces. I've got a bunch of Victoria pieces now. So I'm going to call this the Drina Bracelet, and the reason I'm calling it that is because Queen Victoria's family nickname was Drina, because her name was Alexandrina, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and she was called Drina until she became Queen Victoria. All right, so this is going to be the Drina Bracelet. So I'm going to clear the decks, get a materials list going, and we'll get started on this bracelet. All right, see you in a minute. Okay, let's get the materials list going. So I'm going to make mine to match this necklace. So here I have some 11/0 seed beads, and all materials, colors, sizes, amounts, places I purchased will be in the description box below the video, and I will also link my other Victoria pieces up there and in the description box below the video in case you want to take a look at those. So don't forget to click the show more or the down arrow so that box opens up, and there's all kinds of info in there, websites that I like, stuff I, forget to say or didn't think of while I was filming, so check it out. Okay, so 11/0 seed beads, 3mm pearls. You need 2 or 3mm bead. You can use a bicone here. It's 2 6mm beads in 2 different colors. So I'm using pearls just because that's what I've used here. You can use fire polish here. You can use druck beads. Play with it and see how it works. Some 4mm bicones, gold stop bead. Here's my clasp. I have 2 out because I'm not sure which one. This one looks big to me, but I want to use it, so we'll see how it fits. If not, I'll use this one. Size 10 beading needle, using 8-pound Fireline. I use black satin. Yeah, so there we go. That's about it. So gather up your materials and we'll get started making this bracelet. All right, see you in a few. Okay, we're back. So thread your needle with about 6 to 7 feet of thread. If you can do close to 7, you can get the center done. The whole line. We're going to do a whole line down the center, and then we're going to embellish the sides. This bracelet is 6.5 inches, so this is 6 inches worth of beading. So as you do your center line, you'll put it around your wrist and see where your fit is. So this works perfectly for me. The bracelet is, you want it to clasp relatively close to the wrist because it's flat, so it's not a bangle, so you want it close. All right. Put on a stop bead. If you can leave about a 10-inch tail, you can put the clasp on if you're using this clasp, 10 to 12-inch tail, and you still should be able to get the center done. If you can't, you'll just add thread. It's not a big deal. So I put on my needle. I'm going to pull in a 3mm pearl, 3 11/0s, a 3mm pearl, 3 11/0s, a 3mm pearl, 3 11/0s, a 3mm pearl, and 3 11/0s. That's what I have. I'm going to drop those down to my stop bead. I'm going to sew them into a circle by just coming up through the first pearl after the stop bead. Like that. Now I'm going to sew through the 11/0s and skip the pearls. So I'm going to sew through the next 3 11/0s. I'm going to skip the pearl, and I'm going to sew through the next 3 11/0s. It's going to make that pearl pop up. You don't have to pull super tight, but give it a little tug, and maybe, kind of push it up with your thumb. See how the pearl pops up a little bit? I'm going to skip the next pearl and sew through the next 3 11/0s. Make that pearl pop up. I'll move my step bead. I'm going to skip the pearl again, the next pearl. Sew through the next 3 11-ohs. Oops. Then I'm going to skip the next pearl and sew through the next 3 11-ohs. Like that. And when I pull, so pull your tail thread a little bit and pull your working thread and see what happens. You get this kind of frame, you know, kind of like, it makes everything sort of a little more rigid. It's not super rigid, but it's a little like straighter. Okay, so now I'm coming out of that 11-oh. I'm just going to advance through the next pearl right here. I'm going to pick up my first 6 millimeter. So I'm coming out of this bead here. I'm just going to come across and come through the 3 millimeter on the other side, like that. So I'm coming out of the bottom here, coming through the top here. That puts the pearl on nicely in the center, so it fills up that little frame. All right, so get that done. I'm just for those of you, you know, who haven't done this before, get that done, and then meet me back here. I'll get you through the next unit, and we'll continue. All right, see you in a minute. Okay, so we're coming out of this side of the pearl here. I'm going to pick up 3 11-ohs, a 3 millimeter pearl, 3 11-ohs, a 3 millimeter pearl, 3 11-ohs, a 3 millimeter pearl, and 3 11-ohs, and I'll be down there in a second to show you. Okay, so that's what I have. I have 4 groups of 3 11-ohs with the 3 pearls in between. Coming out of here, I'm just going to advance my needle, put my needle through the other side, so I'm going to sew through the other side of the bead I'm coming out of, that little pearl. Now I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to sew through all the 11-ohs and skip the pearls. So the first, those 3 11-ohs, skip the pearl, a little pull, skip this pearl, sew through the next 3 11-ohs, skip the pearl, sew through the next 3 11-ohs, skip the pearl, sew through the next 3 11-ohs. Make sure your pearls are popping out, and then sew through the next pearl. I'm going to pick up my next 6 millimeter, whatever color you're using. Coming out of the bottom of this bead, I'm just going to sew through this one on the other side to place my pearl in the center. And I'm going to advance my needle through the next 3 11-ohs and the pearl. Okay, and I'm just going to repeat that step all the way down to the end until my bracelet, you know, fits me minus the clasp. Okay? All right, so get that done, and then meet me back here, and we'll continue. All right, see you in a few. Okay, we're back. So I have my center piece done, and this is 6 inches, and it's 14 pearls. So you'll adjust that. Now, I have enough on one end for my clasp, and my tail thread here that I'm going to use for the other end of my clasp. So now we're going to thread a needle again with about 24 inches of thread. And what we're going to do here is we're going to work on the sides here. But the way we're going to do it is we're going to, I'm put a needle at both ends of my thread, but you don't have to, you can just switch it. I'm going to take my needle and thread, so I have my 2 feet on, and I'm going to pull this through until it's centered. So you want that thread centered like this. So just pull it until you have an equal amount of thread on either side, and if you want you can put a needle on. We're not going to cross over anything. This is just to get the sides on without it curling up too much. You want, this keeps it nice and straight, and this is going to be a little challenge for those of you, got to give you a little challenge, who have issues with tension. You're going to have to make sure your tension is just right so that you get this nice flexible bracelet and it's not stiff and it doesn't curl up. All right, so I'm going to pick up an 11/0. Actually, I'm not. What I'm going to do, so I'm coming out of this pearl, so half my thread's coming out of that side, half's coming out of this side. I'm just going to advance my needle down through the 3 11/0s and the pearl on this side, like that, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm advancing through the 3 11/0s, and if you can get through the pearl, get through the pearl. If not, just do them separately, like that. So then I have both my needles set up, and you can straighten them out at this point, make sure that they're even. And now I'm just going to start adding my beads. So this has really anchored the thread and put us where we want to be to add the embellishment. So 11/0 bicone, 11/0. I'm going to sew through the next pearl. 11/0 bicone, 11/0. Sew through the next pearl. And I'm going to do that all the way down. I'm just going to switch sides just so my tension is good, so it's the same on both sides. So here, $11.0 bicone, 11/0, and I apologize for my raspy voice, and I've just caught my first cold of the season, and I'm trying to get this done before I start sneezing too much. All right, so here you go. So just do both sides all the way down to the end, and then we'll put on the clasp. And make sure your tension is good. Don't pull too tight, and make sure that you can even pull them together like this very gently so that your tension is good. All right, see you in a few. Okay, we're back. So I've done both my sides. I have both my threads coming out, one end. Here's my center thread that's going to be for the clasp. So now I'm just going to sew these threads in. So make sure the fit is good and your tension is good. So I'm coming out of the pearl right here. I'm going to sew through the 3 11/0s, and I'm still watching my tension here. I don't want to pull the bracelet too much. Through the pearl, through the 3 11/0s, and the pearl on the other side. So see, I'm just going to be switching sides just to sew everything in. And I think the best place to sew in is not around the edges, but in the center. However, if you want to tighten up your edges, let's say your edges are a little loose and you want to tighten them up, you can just sew all the way through all the beads again. So that's an option, but I don't need to, so I'm just going to sew through these 3. I'm just coming around the unit. I'm going to put a little half hitch knot right here before the pearl. I'm going to sew through the pearl. And what you can do is you can do that a few times down the center. And then I'm going to just take my other thread and I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And then meet me back here and we'll put the clasp on. All right, see you in a few. Okay, we're back. So let's get the first end of the clasp on. So pretty easy. Just watch your tension. Came out really pretty. So here, so if you notice how I put this clasp on, I put some pearls at the end to kind of hide that loop. I'm always trying to find ways to hide the loop on clasps, with a ring. So this worked out. So I'm going to pick up an 11/0 3mm pearl, my clasp, a 3mm pearl, an 11/0, and we'll see if it works with this one. This has a kind of a thicker, I'm going to come through the other side of that pearl. It has a thicker loop. Oh yeah, that should work. Okay, so just like that. And do you see how I'm pushing that loop in between the pearls? Instead of having it sit on top of them, I'm going to push them in so it sort of becomes part of the clasp. So don't worry about it, you'll get it in, you know, if it doesn't go in the first time. So I'm coming around again, and before I tighten it, I'm going to push that in. See that? And then I'm going to come through here, and then I'm going to pull. So a couple of times through, and then you can get that loop in between the pearls, and I think it just looks a little prettier. So at this point, you can definitely do it one more time. Make sure it doesn't pop out. Might popped out a little bit. Push it back in. Come through here, and then tie some half hitch knots. Go down your, I tie them in the middle again. Tie some half hitch knots. Make sure that little loop stays in between the two. Put on your other end, and then meet me back here, and we'll look at our bracelets. All right, see you in a few. Okay, we're done. So here's the bracelet. And it came out really nice and flexible. Fits perfectly. You'll pop that guy on. Just there you go, just like that. Looks really, really very pretty. I just wanted to share with you something. Like when I make a mistake, I like to leave it because I like you to benefit from my mistakes. So when I was sewing the sides in on this bracelet, something felt off to me, just a little weird. You know, it just didn't feel right. And I think as you become more experienced beading, you'll notice anything that isn't right. And I thought it was just, whatever, I'll just keep going. I missed a seed bead right there. So when I put on my seed bead, bicone seed bead, I forgot my seed bead. And that little tiny seed bead, I can feel the difference. I can feel it. I can feel how it's changed. Aside from, of course, you really can't see it unless you look for it. I can feel it. So just my mistake is your learning moment. So don't forget to check all your beads and make sure, especially with the sort of repetitive pattern, make sure that you're putting on the right amount of beads. All right, so here's everybody. Here's the other bracelet. Here are the rings. Here's the ring with the skull that Daisy, a viewer, sent me, and I liked it so much. The Victoria ring using a skull as the center bead. I had to make one for myself. So thanks again, Daisy, for that. Everybody's been having fun with skulls since I showed your skull version. Also, you can click on my face at the end of this video. If you want to subscribe, click on my face and it will bring you to a subscribe button. So if you like the video, please subscribe. And I'll pop up a few pictures here. You can just click on those pictures of other Victoria pieces so that they're links. They'll take you straight to the piece if you'd like. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this video. Take care, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.